Welcome to the Growth Clinic. This is a monthly community event that we host designed to teach knowledge and techniques designed to help you grow and be more successful in your marketing. So first off, we want to thank you guys for joining us here today, being a part of our community. We hope you find this session useful today. And if you do, please invite a friend, invite a colleague. We'd love them to join as well and learn with us. And as always, we want this to be the most valuable hour of your week, if not month. So please, as we go through the discussion today, drop your comments in the chat. We want to make sure we answer all your questions before we wrap here today. So please feel free to use that chat section liberally, and we'll make sure we cover every single one of your questions before we finish up. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So today's topic, we are talking about 3 winning digital marketing plays to unlock your marketing results, right? So we've all heard the terms of more with less, right? How do we do more with less? How do we thrive in a time where budgets are being reduced, we're in a recessionary environment, and how do we kind of unlock kind of the plateau that we may currently be at with our marketing, right? So this session will hopefully be valuable for you. We're going to go over 3 winning plays that we found consistently unlock marketing results for our clients, and these are things that we use for ourselves as well. I'm going to go ahead and fire up my screen share here. So just let me know when I fire it up. I'll let you guys know, and just let me know if you guys can see my screen, and we'll go ahead and get the party started here. All right, and just let me know in the chat if you guys can see my screen. Looking good. All right, cool. So let's get started. So quick agenda. We're going to go over what we're going to cover in the session today, and what the goal for the session is going to be. We're going to define what a play is in this context, and then we're going to go over 3 specific plays that you guys can take away and start using today in your marketing. The first is what we call the bouncer, the second is the Steve Jobs, and the third is the shortcut. So what is this content really for? So if you're a marketing leader or CMO, if you're in a situation where you're held accountable for revenue or monetary results and not just quote unquote leads, again, if you're being asked to do more with less right now, especially with budgets being reduced, teams being downsized, if you just want or need more arrows in your quiver, you need more tactics or strategies to deploy to help drive growth, or maybe you're just stuck and you need an idea or 2 to get out of a rut, this content is going to be very helpful for you. Ultimately, our goal here today is to add to your grab bag of strategies and tactics that you can use and bring to your marketing. And ideally, by deploying these, you'll be able to improve your results very quickly, but also very sustainably as well. So let's get into the 3 winning plays. But first, let's define what we mean by a play. So by a play, we're talking about a collection of marketing actions or tactics that are repeatable and produce a consistent set of outcomes, right? So we're not just talking about one-off things you can do that, will be, kind of have a short-term benefit. We're talking about things that you can do on a repeatable basis that will have a long-term sustained impact on your marketing results. So let's get into what those are. First play is the bouncer. So the bouncer is really about blocking those junk leads from your CRM and even preventing them, not inviting them in the first place, right? So what we're really talking about here is using strategic filtering, specifically with your advertising, to increase the number of high quality leads you're getting without having to adjust your targeting, change your ad messaging, or your landing pages mostly, right? And the best part of it is you get rid of a lot of the junk that's clogging your pipeline so that you're really focusing on quality of leads in your CRM over quantity, right? So how do we do that? How do we put the bouncer into play here? Let's talk about some pros and things to know about this approach. It dramatically increases your lead quality, right? So we're talking about making sure that every lead we get, the higher percentage of them are actually going to be workable by our sales team, right? It also cuts your cost per deal by a significant margin. So with this approach, one thing to note, as you'll see on the right side here, is it might inflate your cost per lead metric a little bit, but your cost per deal should go down significantly. So the ultimate outcome we want to achieve with our marketing is not just to generate leads or contacts in our CRM, but close won deals. And this is designed to increase the efficiency of our ability to drive net new revenue for the companies we serve. Another pro is it helps sales close a higher percent of leads into deals and keeps them from having to deal with low quality leads, which ultimately take up their time, which increases the cost of sales. A couple other things to know about this approach. It does require a couple of edits to your lead form, which we'll get into. It requires some technical tracking skills, so you'll need to be able to use Google Tag Manager. And the speed of impact depends on your lead volume. So the more leads you're driving, the better this bouncer approach is going to work for you. So here are a couple examples of what it looks like in action. The first example on the left here, this is a wealth management client. And our bouncer here for this client is approximate investable assets. So you can see this client has a minimum of a certain amount of investable assets that make a qualified lead for them. So we're essentially adding this question to serve as a bouncer to only tell the ad platforms, Google and Facebook, hey, this is a good lead if they have, say, $500,000 or more of investable assets, right? The example on the right here is another example, kind of on the opposite side in the debt release space, where they can only serve customers that have a certain amount of consumer debt, right? So here we're asking the question, how much debt do you owe? And in this example, for example, if it's $10,000 or more of consumer debt, then we can then tell Google and Facebook, hey, this is a good lead. Let's go and find more like these, right? So here's what that actually looks like in action in terms of implementation. In a typical lead flow, we have our ad platforms, right? And we're having folks submit a form on our website, right? And then when they submit that form, a conversion fires and the lead also populates the Salesforce. Now this is okay. This is the standard flow that most of us have with our advertising. The challenge is here that it treats all form submissions the same, right? Every lead is treated as equal in this scenario. So there's no way that we can help the ad platform differentiate what is a good lead versus what is a bad lead, right? So the way we solve for this is by using a quality optimized flow, right? And this is where we implement the bouncer here, right? So we have our ad platform that goes to our form, and we have a qualifying question, right, that asks specific questions, just like we showed in the previous slide, to help identify, like, is this a lead that we would want to get more of, right? Do they fit our minimum criteria for what constitutes a lead that we can work and that would ultimately, convert to a customer for us, right? If yes, then after the form submit, we'll fire that conversion and send the lead to Salesforce. If no, we'll still send the lead to the CRM, but we won't fire that conversion, right? So essentially what we're doing here is we're using these qualifying questions as our bouncer, as our filter to say, only fire a conversion. In other words, only tell Google, Facebook, or whatever ad platform that this is a conversion when this lead meets our criteria, right? So in doing so, we're essentially making sure that we are only educating or training the algorithms of Google and Facebook on qualified leads, right? So what that means is Google and Facebook are then going to go and find more qualified leads versus treating all the leads that all the form submissions that we get through that form equally, right? So this is a very, very powerful way to make sure that you're optimizing quality, not just in the short term, but ultimately building, the ad platform's knowledge of what quality looks like in the long term and strengthening that signal of quality so that you get more and more qualified leads over leads that just don't fit your criteria. And this is just a visual representation of how it works. So in current typical scenario, all leads are treated the same. So you get more of the same. In the algorithmic training, in the bouncer approach we're talking about here, we identify or single out those high quality leads, and then Google and Facebook are able to learn off of them, and you'll see more quality leads come through over time. Play number 2 is the Steve Jobs. So this approach is all about giving your users something extra when you have at that point in the buyer's journey when you're most likely to have their attention. And what this typically tends to be is the thank you page, right? So after that user has submitted that form on your website, they're expecting what comes next, right? And you can strategically use these thank you pages, these moments in time when you have that prospect's attention to, whether they've downloaded content or other information, or even, completed a demo or completed enough for free demo to offer your users one more thing to do. So if they've downloaded the piece of content, you can say, hey, now that you've downloaded the piece of content, maybe you want a demo, maybe you want to schedule a meeting with our team, or do something that's further down the funnel, right? So this, you can think of this as like a one-time offer you can make to your prospect to upgrade them to that next step in the pipeline, right? So let's get into the details of how to do that. Pros, this is very simple to implement. It speeds up middle of funnel leads and drives them towards the bottom of funnel. And it's pretty low tech. It's typically accomplished using only copywriting and a form. However, a couple things to know about this approach. The offer is really key here. So your offer needs to be enticing and unique, and give that person a reason to act now versus doing it down the road, right? So you have to demonstrate a reason for them to have that urgency to act. And there's a balancing act to be done here, right? You can't push too hard. This is just your first at bat. So you don't want to push that prospect away by being too pushy, but you do want to make it easy for them to say yes at the same time, right? So that's kind of the art of sort of crafting this offer for your thank you page. So here are a couple of examples. This is one that's worked really well for us. So for our wealth management client, we have an asset called 6 Sources of Retirement Income. And what we found is once people download this, they're actually more likely to want to speak to an investment professional than if they're just seeing the opportunity to speak to an investment professional cold, right? So the user will get this offer for 6 Sources of retirement income, they'll download it. And then once they've downloaded it, they have the opportunity to read their asset now, but they also get an offer to actually speak with an investment professional, right? The thought being that if they're already looking to prepare for their retirement, they might as well have a conversation with a CFP and learn more about their options. So the third play that we want to cover here is the shortcut. As marketers, we tend to make meetings harder than they need to be, right? Ultimately, the goal of any form on our website is to, especially if you're in a B2B context or in the B2C lead gen space, is to get that prospect to book a meeting on a sales rep's calendar. But we make it hard. So we collect info to set a meeting, to qualify someone so we can set a real meeting, right? So that leads to a lot of back and forth. You know, say someone fills out a form, that form fill goes to a sales rep, that sales rep then has to reach out to that prospect and then set a time on the calendar, convince them to set a time. And it's just a lot of overhead that is totally unnecessary these days. Because if someone's raising their hand asking for a meeting, we can use automation to just give it to them, let them book the meeting on their own. So how do we do that? A couple of things to know about this approach. There are plenty of options out there to do this. We prefer Chili Piper. For most use cases, there are some other tools out there that do this, but especially if you have a sales team and you need to route that lead to the right person, Chili Piper is a great tool to do that. The implementation of this is pretty simple, and it solves for prospect qualification and lead routing, right? So you can not only use this approach to qualify your prospects, or again, use that bouncer approach, but you can also route the lead to the right rep that manages that territory or industry or what have you, right? And this dramatically increases your scheduled meeting rate ultimately, right? Now, this is not free. Now, you will need some tools to apply this, like Chili Piper, for example, but it's not that expensive either. Your salespeople do need to have accurate calendars. So, for example, if your salespeople are booking time slots on their meetings or over times they should be taking meetings, they'll need to adjust that to make sure they have availability to take these meetings from these meeting tools, right? And finally, you need to BANT on the form itself, meaning qualify, right? Budget, authority, need, timing, which is covered if you use play number 1 as part of this. So here's an example of what it looks like in action. So this is actually our form on our website. So you can see we have the usual fields, first name, last name, email, but a couple key fields here, company size, and is your business headquartered in the United States, right? So we're actually using these fields to qualify our leads, right? To, again, bounce them, right? If they're not a good fit. But if they pass this criteria, then we can move them to a calendar, right? So instead of this lead going to a sales rep on our team and us having to go back and forth with them, if they pass our minimum qualification criteria, they can just book a call right then and there, right? So it cuts down on our work. We don't have to go back and forth with a lead to schedule them, and makes it really easy for the prospect to get to that next step they want to get to, and creates a great experience for them overall, right? One other thing we add to this form is how did you hear about us? So this is a nice little tip. You'll get attribution from Google Analytics or your marketing automation tool of choice, like HubSpot, for example, of course. But this is really useful to hear from the prospect, anecdotally where you heard about them, right? So maybe your your lead source, according to the record, is organic search, but maybe they followed your podcast and then Googled your brand, right? This is an opportunity for you to collect that information, and we highly recommend adding it to the forms to get that insight. And that's it. So just to recap, first approach is to bounce the junk leads that don't make sense for your business. And over time, that'll gradually filter and give you more and more of the high quality leads that you want, right? Then you can leverage those points of time, those thank you pages, when you have that prospect's attention, to accelerate your sales cycles and graduate them to that next step. And then finally, make it easy for them to book, make it easy for them to get on the sales rep's calendar, and make that handoff from marketing to sales as seamless as possible, and create that great first experience for that prospect so that they can take the next steps with your team. You'll shorten your sales cycle, and probably, in most cases, from what we've seen, increase your close rates and increase your conversion rates on your website too, because you make it that much easier for the prospect to do what they want to do and take that next step with your company. So that's it. After this, we have some detailed instructions in a PDF that we can send out to you guys. That'll show you in greater detail how to implement this. But that concludes our 3 winning plays.